Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Mark Lynn. Namaskar. Coming up in the next hour. BRICS leaders push for empowering the global south, reforms and responsible AI. Prime Minister Modi urges for lead by example approach. Also says for India, climate justice is not an option, it's a moral duty. Prime Minister Narendra Modi holds bilateral meetings with leaders of Bolivia and Uruguay. Discussion held on improving and diversifying trade linkages and boosting ties. Both Trump and Netanyahu express optimism of a ceasefire in Gaza as Netanyahu is set to visit the White House today. Texas flash floods claim over 80 lives. Dozens are still missing as search operations expand. Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed the session on environment, COP30 and global health at the BRICS summit in Rio de Janeiro. And in his intervention, Prime Minister Modi stressed on strengthening shared efforts to make the planet healthier. The Prime Minister noted that for India, climate change and environmental protection have always been subjects of the topmost priority. This has also been a part of our ancient culture, he said. Now, for India, climate change is not merely an issue of energy. It is about maintaining balance between life and nature. India is driven by the spirit of people, planet and progress. India has launched numerous initiatives like Mission Life, that's lifestyle for the environment, Ek Ped Maa Ke Naam, a tree for mother. Now, International Solar Alliance, Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, Green Hydrogen Mission, Global Fuels Alliance, International Big Cats Alliance. Now, despite being the world's fastest growing major economy, India was the first country to achieve its Paris commitments ahead of schedule. Now, for India, climate justice is not just an option. It's a moral duty. India believes that without technology transfer and affordable financing for countries in need, climate action will remain confined merely to climate talks. The health of the people and planet is interconnected. In fact, the COVID-19 pandemic had taught us that viruses do not arrive with visas, nor are solutions chosen based on passports. This is what the Prime Minister said. Hence, we have to strengthen our shared efforts to make our planet healthier. Prime Minister Modi also met the President of Uruguay, Yamandu Orsi. This happened in Rio on the sidelines of the BRICS summit. And the Prime Minister wrote on X, "Close ties between the two nations are important for the global south. India is committed to doing everything possible to further deepen the relations between India and Uruguay. In this context, we discussed how to boost cooperation in areas like trade, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, technology, defense and more. The rising popularity of yoga in Uruguay is wonderful for boosting people-to-people ties." Prime Minister Narendra Modi held a meeting with the President of Bolivia, Luis Alberto Arce, in Rio de Janeiro. This also on the sidelines of the 17th BRICS Summit. Prime Minister wrote on X that Bolivia is a valued partner in Latin America, and in the recent years, bilateral ties have become much stronger. During their meeting, the leaders talked about the need for improving and diversifying trade linkages on a priority basis. They also discussed how both nations can collaborate in sectors such as digital technology, critical minerals, health care, space, and more. Prime Minister also conveyed his best wishes on the historic occasion of Bolivia's 200 years of independence. Our correspondent Magna Dave is covering these stories and following them closely. She joins us from Rio de Janeiro now. Magna, to what extent, has this summit set the stage for India taking over the chair of an expanded BRICS grouping?
Yes, when we actually see that India's priorities for the BRICS very closely align to what Brazil's priorities are, especially when we are talking about bringing to the fore the concerns of the global south. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, in his statements, in his interventions at sessions, has clearly indicated that especially about two things. First, that now token gestures are not going to be acceptable for the global south countries. He also said that it's not that the decision-making process can be done. He said that the decision-making process cannot be done without representation or at the table of the global south. Now, what we also clearly are seeing is that President Lula has also talked about how it is important for the global south to have a representation on the horseshoe table. He's told that the Caribbean, the Latin America, Africa needs to have a representation there. Besides, also concerns of the global south in terms of debt servicing, in terms of interoperability of use of national currencies for trade and economy, bringing up MSMEs, talking about climate financing, talking also, in terms of small, medium enterprises. These are some of the important agendas that aligns clearly with India's priorities also for the global south. So this clearly sets the tone for India taking up the BRICS chair. And but clearly, when we do see that these were also the priorities when we're talking about the G20. India did bring up the global south issues at the G20 as well, and Brazil carried it on with its G20 presidency. And now it's the other way around, that Brazil's G20 priorities about global governance and reforms, UNSC reforms, and all these things clearly aligning with India's agendas. And India, as Prime Minister Narendra Modi said, India will give a new direction and new definition to the BRICS under his presidency.
Also, Magna, how does the BRICS declaration reaffirm India's position on terrorism and, reform of global governance as well?
Well, Mark, very importantly, we have been speaking to people around here, also other journalists who are covering the BRICS summit very closely. They did also tell us that the kind of push, the kind of strong statement that has come out in the declaration, the paragraph, clearly speaks volumes of the strong condemnation that India has been able to achieve. It's a very big diplomatic win for India to achieve this kind of consensus in terms of condemning the attack in Kashmir. Clearly, it's a big message to the neighbors. It's a big message when we are talking about terror financing. We are talking about providing safe haven to terrorists. We are talking about cross-border terrorism. These words clearly indicate a big message for the neighbors to understand that there are going to be strict actions taken, and the world is united, especially when we're talking here about the BRICS countries. They're united against terrorism. They're united on the stance of combating terrorism. So very strong statement and a big diplomatic victory for India in terms of ensuring that the dastardly attack in Kashmir gets a prominent notice amidst the BRIC nations at this BRICS summit. And when we're talking about governance also, we're talking about UNSC reforms also. Clearly, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said that, the world's constantly transforming. And in this situation, the UN, which is taking decisions, making different policies, talking about solutions for the world, has not gone transformation in 80 years, in 8 decades. So
Yes,
clearly,
exactly.
the urgent need for reforms is something that is
Yes,
required.
Meghna.
And Mark, if you see the
Right.
language that was used, clearly indicates the strong stance, the strong words that were used, that now the global south is not in mood of having too much patience for these reforms.
Also, Meghna, the Prime Minister has been holding lots of bilateral meetings on the sidelines of the summit. Now, how do these fit in with the broader theme, of the Prime Minister's five-nation tour, South-South cooperation?
Very importantly, I'll just give you a short brief in terms of the Prime Minister's engagements in Latin America in the recent past. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, outreach to Latin America has enhanced in a manner, in a sense, India reaching out to the world. We saw the incoming visit of the President of Chile in April 2025. Then we did see that the President of Paraguay was here in June 2025. There was outgoing visit of Prime Minister to Guyana in November 2024. Then Prime Minister attended the India CARICOM summit. Now we see the visit to Trinidad and Tobago, then visit to Argentina. Now the state visit to Brazil is going to happen after 6 decades, about 57 years. This Prime Minister is paying a state visit to Brazil. So that is very significant. And obviously, the bilateral with Mexico happened in, on the sidelines of G7. There was also now the bilaterals happened with Cuba, Bolivia, and Uruguay. So clearly paints a picture of how India is reaching out with countries of Latin America, the kind of importance India attaches, especially in talks in sectors of technology, talks in sector of digital public infrastructure, talks in sectors of critical minerals. With Brazil, we talks about biofuels, agriculture, livestock, and R&D,
Yes.
science and technology. So these are important sectors that India is exploring, and Prime Minister's constant visits, incoming, outgoing visits of from and to Latin America definitely make these bonds, cement these bonds, and make it even more stronger.
Magna Dave in Rio de Janeiro, thanks very much for joining us. Now, earlier, Prime Minister Narendra Modi had addressed the inaugural session of the reform of global governance and peace and security, as well as a session on strengthening multilateral economic financial affairs and artificial intelligence at the 17th BRICS Summit in Rio de Janeiro. The Prime Minister said that Global South has many expectations from the BRICS Forum, and to fulfill them, we must follow the principle of lead by example. I'm quoting the Prime Minister. He also underlined that terrorism was a grave threat facing humanity. The Prime Minister also called for working towards responsible AI.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed the inaugural session on reform of global governance and peace and security, as well as session on strengthening multilateral economic financial affairs and artificial intelligence at the 17th BRICS Summit in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. In his address at the inaugural session on reform of global governance and peace and security, Prime Minister Modi reaffirmed India's commitment to enhancing the voice of the Global South. PM Modi stated that global governance institutions such as UN Security Council, the International Monetary Fund, World Bank, and the World Trade Organization must undergo urgent reform to reflect contemporary realities. Calling for strong global action against terrorism, Prime Minister Modi noted that those funding, promoting, or providing safe havens to terrorists must be dealt with in the harshest terms.
Honorable Prime Minister underlined that terrorism was a grave threat facing humanity. In this context, he noted that all the leaders have condemned Pahalgam terrorist attack in strongest terms.
While in his address at the session on strengthening multilateral economic financial affairs and artificial intelligence, Prime Minister Modi said that BRICS could play an important role in shaping a multipolar world. Prime Minister Modi offered 4 suggestions. First, BRICS New Development Bank must follow demand-driven principle and long-term sustainability for granting projects. 2. The group considers setting up a science and research repository which could benefit the Global South countries. 3. Focus must be given to make the supply chain of critical minerals secured and resilient. And number 4, Groups should work on responsible AI while looking into the concerns of AI governance. It should also give equal importance to promoting innovation in the field. At the conclusion of the leaders' session, member countries adopted the Rio de Janeiro Declaration. The leaders in the declaration noted that we reiterate our support for a comprehensive reform of the United Nations, including its Security Council, with a view to making it more democratic, representative, effective, and efficient. We condemn in the strongest terms the terrorist attack in Jammu and Kashmir on 22nd April 2025, during which 26 people were killed and many more injured. We reaffirm our commitment to combating terrorism in all its forms and manifestations, including the cross border movement of terrorists, terrorism financing, and safe havens. We extend full support to India for its BRICS chairship in 2026 and holding the 18th BRICS Summit in India. On the sidelines of the 17th BRICS Summit in Rio de Janeiro, Prime Minister Modi also held bilateral meetings with various world leaders. PM Modi met the Prime Minister of Malaysia, Anwar bin Ibrahim. PM Modi thanked Prime Minister Ibrahim for his strong condemnation of the Pahalgam terror attack. Prime Minister Narendra Modi also met Cuba's President, Miguel Diaz-Canel Bermudez. The two leaders reviewed bilateral ties in the areas of economic cooperation, development partnership, fintech, capacity building, science and technology, disaster management, and healthcare. Besides this, Prime Minister Narendra Modi also met his Vietnamese counterpart Pham Minh Chinh on the sidelines of BRICS Summit in Brazil. Bureau Report, DD India.
Still to come here on DD India News Hour, the US envoy Barak, he meets the Lebanese president and says that he's satisfied with Lebanon's response on disarming Hezbollah. Typhoon Danis lashes southern Taiwan with record winds, injuring hundreds. A memorial service marks the 20th anniversary of the 7/7 bombings in London.
I love the atmosphere of the yatra. So many people come from each part of India, and it's like everybody, we're in the same community. No difference between people, and it's wonderful. We go all together for the same goal, to see the cave, to feel the atmosphere of the cave.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. The EU spokesperson Olaf Gill said on Monday that the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and the US President Donald Trump had a good exchange on Sunday, adding that the EU's aim remained to reach a trade deal with Washington by July 9. The Trump administration has said letters would go out notifying trading partners without a deal by July 9 of higher tariffs that would take effect on August 1.
We want to reach a deal with the US. We want to avoid tariffs. We believe they cause pain. We want to achieve win-win outcomes, not lose-lose outcomes. Progress has been made towards an agreement in principle. We consulted with our member states on Friday. Our president talked to the American president yesterday. And we are working hard, all parts of the machine, towards getting something over the line by the 9th of July.
Well, Ursula von der Leyen is also going to face a European Parliament no-confidence vote on Thursday. This is in the latest challenge to the European Commission President. It will be the first time since 2014 that the head of the Commission has faced such a move. However, the vote will mainly be symbolic, as she is expected to survive the vote. After 21 months of conflict, there is growing hope for a new ceasefire in Gaza, as US President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu are set to meet in the White House on Monday. This is the Israeli Prime Minister's third visit since Trump had returned to power in January. A US-backed ceasefire proposal would pause the war, free Israeli hostages and send much-needed aid flooding into Gaza. It also aims to open broader talks about ending the conflict. The hope for a ceasefire between Israel and Gaza is riding high, as Trump said that there was a good chance of a hostage deal ahead of Netanyahu's meeting.
I think we're close to a deal on Gaza. We could have it this week. I think there's a good chance we have a deal with Hamas during the coming week, pertaining to quite a few of the hostages. Yeah. You know, we've gotten a lot of the hostages out, but pertaining to the remaining hostages, quite a few of them will be coming out. We think we'll have that done this week.
But Prime Minister Netanyahu said that the Israeli negotiators had been given clear instructions to achieve a ceasefire under conditions that Israel has accepted.
This is an opportunity to expand the circle of peace far beyond what we could have imagined before. We've already transformed the face of Middle East beyond recognition, and we have the opportunity and ability to change it even more and bring a great future to the state of Israel, the people of Israel, and the entire Middle East. We are working to achieve the deal that has been discussed under the conditions we have agreed to. I've sent a team to negotiate with clear instructions. I believe the conversation with President Trump can definitely help advance this outcome.
Meanwhile, Israel and Hamas are set to hold indirect talks in Qatar for a second day on Monday, aimed at securing a ceasefire and hostage deal in Gaza. The U.S. envoy Thomas Barak met with Lebanon's President Joseph Aoun. This happened at the presidential palace in Beirut. And the U.S. envoy, he said that he was satisfied with the Lebanese government's response to a proposal to disarm the militant group Hezbollah. And he also said that Washington is ready to help the small crisis-hit nation emerge from its long-running political and economic crisis.
What the government gave us was something spectacular. In a very short period of time, in a very complicated manner, I'm unbelievably satisfied with the response. Now what it takes is a parry and thrust to the details, which we're going to do. We're both committed to get to the details and get a resolution. So I'm hopeful. I'm very, very hopeful.
There's a state of emergency in Texas as the deadly flash floods have left a trail of devastation and heartbreak. Dozens are still missing, entire communities are underwater, and rescuers are working round the clock in a desperate race to save lives. Here's the report.
Rescuers are racing against time to locate dozens still missing, including children, after deadly flash floods swept through parts of Texas. The catastrophe has already claimed more than 80 lives. Authorities have warned of more heavy rains on the way.
There are dangers over the next 24 to 48 hours that could pose public safety threats to people in these regions. There is heavy rainfall that's already occurred, and there's more heavy rainfall that's expected that will lead to potential flash flooding broadly in these regions. The Big Country, Concho Valley, Central Texas, and once again, Kerrville.
Evacuations are in full swing, from military veterans to local volunteers. Hundreds have joined hands in a desperate search for survivors, braving dangerous waters and debris-strewn streets.
It's gut-wrenching watching all of this happen. I mean, it happened so fast, and I wanted to come out sooner, but I also didn't want to be in the way of waiting for things to get done.
US President Donald Trump, meanwhile, announced he may visit the devastated region on Friday. The White House says his administration is in constant touch with Texas Governor Greg Abbott.
They did. I'll tell you, if you look at that what a situation that all is, and that was really the Biden setup. That was not our setup, but I wouldn't blame Biden for it either. I would just say this is a 100-year catastrophe, and it's just so horrible to watch. Probably on Friday. We wanted to leave a little time. I would have done it today, but we'd just be in their way, probably Friday.
In the face of nature's fury, Texas is showing the true strength of its spirited communities coming together, rescuers defying all odds, and a state of refusing to give up hope. As the search continues and more rains threatens, the fight to save lives goes on. Bureau Report, DD India.
From storms to volcanic eruptions, natural disasters have brought life to a standstill across Asia, leading to evacuations and closure of businesses. Let's look at this report.
Natural disasters have been taking a toll across Asia as climate change makes the weather more and more unpredictable. Typhoon Dennis lashed southern Taiwan with heavy rains and strong winds in a rare hit to the island's densely populated west coast. Over 3,000 people have been evacuated due to the typhoon, which has triggered at least 10 landslides. The storm has also forced closure of businesses and schools. Buildings, including a temple, have been damaged. Taiwan is frequently struck by typhoons, but they generally land along the mountainous and sparsely populated east coast. Eastern China has also been on high alert due to the typhoon, with Coast Guard officers assisting fishermen in evacuation plans. Dozens of residents have evacuated remote islands in southern Japan that have been shaken by nearly 1,600 quakes in recent weeks. While no significant damage has been reported on the hardest hit Akoseki Island, the almost non-stop tremors since June 21st have created panic among locals. Experts believe an underwater volcano and flows of magma might be the cause. They have been unable to predict how long the tremors will continue. Situated on the Pacific Ring of Fire, Japan is one of the world's most earthquake-prone nations. In Indonesia, a volcano erupted just weeks after it caused dozens of flight cancellations to and from the popular resort island of Bali.
We all panicked because the eruption has been going on since earlier. It's really made us panic. And in my opinion, this is the biggest eruption so far.
Local officials have warned of hazardous debris flow from the volcano into nearby residential areas, which are also close to rivers. Indonesia has more than 120 active volcanoes. Bureau Report, DD India.
The British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh arrived at St. Paul's Cathedral for a national service of commemoration on the 20th anniversary of London's July 7 bombings. On July 7 in 2005, 4 suicide bombers blew themselves up on London's public transport network during the busy morning commute, and 52 people were killed, as well as 4 bombers during these attacks on the 3 underground trains in one bus as well. Still to come here on DD India News Hour. We'll discuss the importance of the Rio BRICS declaration and India's leadership of the expanded grouping. Bihar will soon get 4 new Amrit Bharat trains, which was announced by the Railway Minister. Niti Aayog releases the second edition of the Northeastern Region District SDG Index for 2023-24. Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the Economic Brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn, and now let's introduce you to our guest, Ambassador Manjeev Puri, former senior diplomat. He joins us to throw light on the BRICS summit. Ambassador Puri, how does the Rio Declaration reflect India's long-standing demand for reforms of global institutions like the UN and IMF? Can we expect change?
Mark, thank you very much. I don't know about that, but I can say that it more than reflects India's demand for a reform of the multilateral system, the IMF, World Bank, that side of it, as well as the UN Security Council. And this is important because remember, within the BRICS is also China. On the UN side, they are a permanent member. There's Russia, they are a permanent member. So that's important. India and Brazil are together in the G4 setup.
Yes.
In the context of the IMF reform, I think this is particularly important because the declaration went on to also notice the interests of the countries of the South, not just a quota reform. Because, we should be quite clear, at the present, the situation as things stand at the IMF and also at the World Bank, the United States has a kind of veto with more than about 16% of the quota. The Chinese are at about 5% along with the Japanese. And, they could be the first beneficiaries. But the idea of what the BRICS has said, or at least what they've noted, is that this should not be a reform without taking into account the interests of the global South. And that, I think, is particularly important because that's important for the way India would like to see the quota reform at the IMF and at the World Bank go forward.
Indeed, and the BRICS consensus also on a rules-based international order, which is grounded in multilateralism and respect for sovereignty. India, of course, desires this, but you did mention the two P5 countries that are members of BRICS, and many would argue that, they don't follow this quite well.
Absolutely, Mark. Look, international governance is a power game of nations, but we are making it there. So what can I say? The fact that we are founding member of the BRICS, we were identified by Goldman Sachs more than 25 years back as one of the countries which would make an impact and change in the world. So now many people would look and tell us and say to us, "Hey guys, you're making it there. What about the rest of us?" And that's where the great challenge is. To be a part of and indeed carry along the global South as you mount your way to the global heights. No doubt about that at all. But,
yes.
I must say, we are managing multi-alignment very well. We're managing to bridge this particular gap. At the same time, as you mentioned, we do have two permanent members of the Security Council in this grouping. We've been able to bridge the gap with them. The Brazilians, I'm sure, have also played their role very well in all of this. I think all in all, a very positive summit. Remember, Mark, this summit has taken place at the time of unprecedented global challenge. I'm not only talking about President Trump and the efforts on the trade front and on several other fronts to be very disruptive and to talk in terms of tariffs won't work, we won't agree with you, in terms of disrupting the transatlantic order, in terms of climate change, not wanting to go along, but also in terms of the Middle East, the Iran-Israel conflict, the issues regarding Gaza, the Ukraine-Russia. So in all of these, to get things going was, I think, particularly important. And the fact that the summit was held and it saw and brought forth the sort of situation and the demands of the global South and put it there very squarely in front of the world was, I think, very important without losing sight and without, losing the usual panache of diplomacy and doing things in a polite manner, but yet saying what had to be said in a correct manner, that we look for these reforms, we want these to happen, and we are all united in working towards multilateralism.
Sure.
You said something else which was very interesting. A rules-based order grounded in multilateralism.
Yes.
Now, Mark, it's important for our viewers and listeners to understand that there is a kind of difference in a sense that the word rules-based order is usually used by the Americans and the Western world. The South and countries of the South, etc., use the word international law. Here, we've tried to bridge the two. Rules-based order based on multilateralism. Multilateralism actually results in international law. Some of it may be hard, Chapter 7 Security Council. Some of it may be best endeavor General Assembly resolution. But they are a kind of international law and
Indeed.
not, ideas of the will.
So also the BRICS have endorsed responsible AI. India has always been emphasizing, on ethical tech governance and digital inclusion and all that. So how important is this?
Very important. Look, we are a country which, let me say very clearly, from the Y2K era, we've been one of the countries which has benefited a lot from the tech development, the IT development, at the same time contributed a lot. Look at the good people in Silicon Valley. So many of them come from our universities, etc., and we are so proud of all of them. And as AI develops, it's going to be the trained, good people who have Indian roots in them, Indian education with them, who will be propelling this forward. At the same time, we're not just talking about individuals making a great success. We are also saying we should look after societies, countries, the global south is very important. And so we are very clear in our mind that the entire set of developments, whether be AI, etc., cannot simply say, leave the south behind, leadership of those who've got it, and they will take things forward, take it or leave it. No, it has to be inclusive. It has to be one in which the last person is also included. He or she gets a chance to benefit from the benefits that accrue. It can't just be that, I invented it, I got it, and, it's my way or the highway.
Indeed.
Quite a difference from what you would hear from at least the transatlantic side, but we've been consistent on that. Prime Minister was there when the French hosted an AI summit. We've been speaking on it. The Europeans too, in their own way, because they're not really big-time leaders in the AI front, etc. They also talk in terms of responsibly taking forward IT, AI, etc. And so very good. The BRICS have also come strongly together. Remember, there's China there, which is, in a sense, a major leader in the area of AI.
Okay.
Glad that they've also signed on.
Ambassador Puri, the reference to terrorism and Pahalgam also at the Rio summit, how does it reflect India's efforts also to build a unified BRICS stance on counter-terrorism?
Mark, without doubt, this is an achievement. Let me say this, not just the inclusion of the words Pahalgam and condemnation of terrorism. After all, there was the Security Council resolution after the attacks. But this little expression, including cross-border terrorism, I think that's something to be noted. And I am glad that the BRICS nations all agreed to go along. Indeed, I don't think they would have not gone along, but it's important that this important grouping of the world has endorsed this particular view. And, where it points, everybody knows. It's very crystal clear. That India was behind this is very clear. And so, in a sense, it's a signal which goes out to those who should be truly mindful and understand that terrorism, and especially cross-border terrorism, it has a price, and beware. The world is watching.
Ambassador Puri, how does the expansion of BRICS, with Indonesia joining and other partner countries also identified, align with India's vision of, we've been talking about it, the Global South, a stronger Global South coalition?
So, Mark, when we started off with BRICS, now some 15 odd years back, it was a grouping of the 4 countries which were sort of challenging the world, bringing in the perspectives of the Global South, but let me say the biggies of the Global South. We've enlarged that particular group and we've done it deliberately. I think that's a good sign. But, I would always caution and leave this one particular thing, that as you expand this group, and let's say we've included 4 or 5 countries at Kazan, we welcomed Indonesia, now we've identified some countries as partner countries. As you do that, remember the biggest challenge becomes the 100-odd other countries in the Global South who say, well, till yesterday you were in the same grouping, now you are in another one. How does it square up when you sit in the group of 77 and negotiate global texts on climate and so on? This is a challenge. It shows that you are an achieving country, that you are a country of interest, that you stand up. And even though you say, and you mean very well, that you will use your power and your abilities to stand for the others, the challenge is to be able to bridge this to the global south. And I think we've made major efforts on our part. We will continue to do that. That not only are we, in our own sense, as part of the emerging economies and therefore recognized globally in the BRICS, in the G20, etc., but our heart and our mind, and indeed we are strongly situated with you in the global south, and your views, etc., resonate with us. That's what we will champion.
And Prime Minister said that climate justice is not an option, it is a moral duty for India. So to what extent, has India shaped the discussion on issues like climate funding, climate finance and stuff like that?
Mark, I wasn't there, but Brazil is the home to all of this, the Rio Declaration. So let's accept that they would have done most of the spade work there. But what is very important for me is the following: that at a time when you have on their side of the Atlantic, in fact, attempts, of bringing about an erasure to climate change. The fact that at the UN's Conference on Financing for Development, the Americans moved the idea that you should drop the expression Sustainable Development Goals, to that extent. And now, when the countries of the BRICS come together and say, no, sustainability is important, an inclusive world is important, we underline climate change. India, of course, is a lead country. Since the Paris Agreement, we've taken our strong NDCs, we've done more than our bits, our achievements are more than our targets that we set for ourselves, and we are strongly committed to it domestically because we believe in it globally, but we also believe that we have a necessity to do it because of our own vulnerability. I have little doubt that India, Brazil have been strong collaborators on climate and sustainability, but I'm sure so has South Africa been strong. Indeed, now the world's focus is, what about China? I'm, of course, leaving out the United States, which says, hey, it doesn't exist, we won't do it. What can I say about that? But the Europeans, who've been old-time climate champions, now for a variety of national security reasons, etc., are trying to both dilute their own commitments. I'm not saying they are wavering from it. They are trying to dilute their commitment and rope in others, China, India being among the lead, who they want to bring on, in a sense, to take care of some of the portions which they are vacating. Of course, without speaking of the fact that the biggest player in the game, the United States, simply says, I won't do anything.
Ambassador Puri, we're running short of time, but a last question, India's lead by example call. Now, India is also taking over the chairmanship of BRICS. So in what way is that lead by example going to influence BRICS strategies under India's leadership?
This is a very important question, Mark, and I'm so glad that, the leadership of BRICS comes back to India after several years. In 21, when we hosted the summit, it was all virtual. So what can one see? But remember, in 2016, when we hosted the BRICS summit in Goa, the new development bank was set up. This time around, a lot of conversation was around whether the BRICS may be able to do some kind of formalization, a secretariat. But look, then lots of other things happened. The attacks on Iran. Iran was a member just brought into the BRICS last year. Can you imagine the kind of situation? Could you be talking about this? No. But when it comes to us, would we take some of these institutional things forward? It depends. It depends. I don't know which way the government would think at that stage, but we were the host country when the new development bank was set up. We now need to think, do we try and formalize BRICS, especially as it's become a bigger entity than just 5 countries as it was? Very important. In various senses, the mantle of responsibility now comes on India, on our leadership, the Prime Minister, and this will be a very important, yet another place where a country which is going up ladder, which is a responsible country, that country takes on the leadership. We are not talking in terms of the way President Trump says anti-American. No, we're not looking at it. We're looking at BRICS being complementary to the global order, complementary maybe to the G7, but working within the G20, something which was also highlighted in the Rio Declaration. We want to be part of the world and taking humankind together. I think India has a specific, let me say, a global imperative in doing that. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is not our national motto just like that. We will live up.
We leave it there. Thank you very much, Ambassador Manjeev Puri. Thank you for putting into context Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Brazil for the BRICS summit. Now, earlier, ahead of his visit to Brazil, Prime Minister was in Argentina, as we remember, and in Trinidad and Tobago. And during his visit to Argentina, the Prime Minister gifted a hand-etched silver lion on Fuxit stone. It was the Fuxit stone base as well as Madhupani painting. This is of the son to Argentinian President Javier Milei. The hand-etched silver lion is a striking example of Rajasthan's renowned metalwork and gemstone artistry. Meanwhile, the Madhubani painting showcases one of India's oldest folk art traditions from the Mithila region of Bihar. The Prime Minister also gifted a metallic pot and sacred water from the river Saryu and also a silver replica of the Ayodhya Ram Temple to the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Kamala Persad Bisesar. Crafted in metal, the pot, it embodies abundance and sanctity, making it an auspicious gift that invokes divine protection, health and spiritual well-being. It's also cast entirely in pure silver. The miniature temple, it embodies purity, devotion and cultural pride. The Railway Minister Ashwini Vaishnav, during his visit to Patna, announced major railway developments for Bihar. 4 new Amrit Bharat trains will be launched, including a daily Patna-Delhi service and weekly trains from Darbhanga to Lucknow, Malda to Lucknow, as well as Saharsa to Amritsar.
दिल्ली और पटना के बीच में कनेक्टिविटी सिग्निफिकेंटली इम्प्रूव होनी चाहिए, बहुत बढ़नी चाहिए। तो ये डेली रहेगी और खूब जल्दी इसका इनॉग्रेशन किया जाएगा। साथ ही साथ दरभंगा से लखनऊ ये वीकली अमृत भारत एक्सप्रेस का फैसला लिया गया है और मालदा से लखनऊ वो भी एक फैसला लिया गया है और एक फैसला लिया गया है सहरसा से अमृतसर।
The second edition of the Northeastern Region District SDG Index for 2023-24 was released by the Niti Aayog in New Delhi on Monday. This is in collaboration with the Ministry of Development of the Northeastern Region and has technical support from UNDP. This pioneering regional framework, it assesses the district-level progress of all 8 northeastern states in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. The latest index, in fact, shows significant improvement. 85% of the districts now fall in the front-runner category compared to 62% in the previous edition. The district of Hanatial in Mizoram, in fact, has topped the chart, while Longding in Arunachal Pradesh has the lowest score. The index highlights considerable gains in key sectors such as clean cooking fuel, sanitation, housing and health services, critical for narrowing the development gap with the national average.
It's highly heartening that about 85% of the districts are in the front runner category. It was just about 60% last time. Number of districts have changed. I'm using percentages. 85% of the districts are in the front runner category, which means they're very, very likely to meet the SDG goals as scheduled or earlier. I think that's very, very important. And some states have done remarkably well. 3 states have all their districts in the front runner category. You have Mizoram, you have Sikkim and Tripura. So I think Northeast is an extremely important part of India. You know, the country, the nation has an Act East, Look East policy, and they are very, very critical. But I think there's a desh badal raha hai, Northeast bhi badal raha hai. You know?
Let's take a look now at other stories making news from around the world. Protesters gathered in Nairobi on Monday despite a heavy police presence and roadblocks in the city centre, defying a security clampdown aimed at halting anti-government demonstrations. Police responded with tear gas and water cannons to disperse the crowds. The protests coincided with the anniversary of the 1990 Sabha Sabha rally, a pivotal event that helped usher in multi-party democracy into Kenya. Hundreds of people gathered outside the home of Gyanendra Shah, who is Nepal's last king, to mark his 78th birthday in Kathmandu. Shah was deposed in 2008 at the end of a decade-long civil war, bringing an end to his reign, and he was the last king of Nepal. Crowds gathered for the first bull run during the iconic San Fermin festival in Pamplona. Thousands of people attend the week-long festival and its famous bull runs, in which 6 bulls are released every day to run from their corral to the bull ring through the narrow streets of the old town, while runners ahead of them, they try to stay close to the bulls without falling over or being gored. Let's look at the sports news now. And on the occasion of the players' auction for the Delhi Premier League, the DDCA, Joint Secretary Amit Grover said that the DPL is proving to be an excellent platform for young cricketers. Players who have participated in this league are now making a name for themselves. Narayan Singh has the latest.
Cricket in Delhi is growing by leaps and bounds, and right now I am joined by Amit Groverji, the Joint Secretary of the DDCA. Sir, a very warm welcome. The way things are happening in Delhi cricket, we saw auction for both men and women, and many marquee players were there. So how you look that Delhi is given a multiple champions to the Indian cricket, especially in IPL we saw many talented cricketers given by the Delhi Premier League.
Yes. So DPL season 1 was a huge success for us. As you know, Priyansh Arya was a huge success. He had hit 6 sixes in DPL and he got picked up by Punjab for about 3.5 crores. And he performed really well in IPL. There were other boys also, like Digvesh Rathi, Prince Yadav, Simarjeet Singh. So all these kids have been groomed. What we are trying to do here is to ensure that we can nurture talent, and the talent actually from the league level, now they have a showcase to perform in the DPL side, and this is where we made it as a complete game changer, and all thanks to our young energetic president, Mr. Jaitley, whose brainchild it was to actually ensure that the talent in Delhi has a platform to work and to perform and to showcase their talent.
So how you look that it's a big push to the women's cricket too?
Absolutely. The whole push has been to ensure that the women side also have a similar platform as the men's side. Now we have 4 teams currently in DPL 2, and what we were able to do was to have a T20 league tournament. There were incentives given to the clubs for them to have teams in the league to showcase the women's, and we had about 200 girls who were coming up for the auction now. There are 4 teams, so the idea is now to make sure that it comes at par with men, and hopefully in the next couple of seasons we are able to bring in more teams to equate them to 8 teams that we already have for the men's side. We have 4. We want to have more so that it comes at parity. So that's the whole idea.
So here the DDC is trying to bring the women's cricket in parity with the men's cricket, and in the coming season we will see that both men's and women's league will have the same number of teams and same prize money. So it's going to be a wonderful league. Already is creating a buzz in the world of cricket. The camera person Anil, Narayan Singh, DD India, Delhi.
Well, the Delhi Premier League women's auction for its second edition was held in Delhi on Sunday with 164 players in the pool. Franchises, they showed strong interest, highlighting DDCA's growing focus on women's cricket. Tanisha Singh was one of the top buys, and she went to the Central Delhi Queens for 1.3 million rupees. Purva Sivach was picked up by East Delhi Riders for 975,000 rupees, and Purnika Sisodia joined Central Delhi for 825,000 rupees. Pragya Rawat and Priya Mishra went to Queens. Shivi Sharma was signed by South Delhi for 325,000 rupees. The highlight was the 13-year-old Ritisha Kushi, and she was bought by central Delhi for 170,000 rupees. Her selection reflects a push for youth talent. Now the auction, it shows DPL's rising profile. It also shows DCA's clear intent to back women's cricket with this auction. Well, that's all we have in this edition of DD India News Hour. Let's know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those of you on the go, get the latest news and updates on our mobile app, DD India mobile app. It's available on Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code and download it now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. My name is Mark Lin. Thank you very much for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar.